This podcast is brought to you by the Disabled But Not Really Foundation, a local Kansas City nonprofit organization that pushes to instill a physical limitless mindset that breeds courage, confidence, and competence within the disabled community. You can follow and support Disabled But Not Really on social media or go visit their website at disabledbutnotreally.org. Their work and their mission is to really impact communities and make more people understand the benefits of inclusivity.
Good Sunday morning. I am April Jackson here with Open Up Pittsburgh at Sunday Safe Spaces. I have Wesley Hamilton here from Disabled But Not Really, but also your own brand. How are you, Wesley Hamilton?
I'm well. I'm doing really good. You know, the Chiefs is playing today, and football Sunday playoff. So I'm in a great feeling this morning. Very hopeful. Very hopeful.
I knew we were going to open with that whole conversation. I was prepared because my Rams are not doing it, and the Falcons are not doing it, and the Steelers are not doing it. So we'll rally behind you, Wes.
I mean, if you want to show love to Cali, the 49ers is doing a little something.
They did
They did their thing last night.
That's true.
So
listen, I'm a Bay Area girl. I was born there, so I would take it.
So shout out to them. But yes, it is great to be on today, and thank everybody for joining on all of our platforms. So no matter where you are in the world, we really appreciate the fact that you're tapping into us. Speaking of tapping in, you see what I did there?
Wow, look at that little segue. Look, doing it.
We do. We have Dr. Melissa Hankins, and yes, this is not the first time.
Right.
No,
right.
It is not.
And
I'm so glad to be here.
Dr. Melissa, do you prefer Dr. Melissa or Dr. Hankins, or what do you prefer?
Melissa is fine.
I call her that, but first of all,
I appreciate you asking, but yes, Melissa is all good.
Give a woman her dues. But it was 2 years ago, year and a half. It was 2022 when she was last.
Oh, wow.
I know. Or 21, I think it was 22. So,
the world was in chaos or coming out of chaos. It's still in chaos, a different kind of chaos. It's always, so tapping will be nice today.
Yeah, really, really, really will. We wanted to have you on to, tap in, discuss easing into the new year. But I want to also introduce you. I want people to see we're talking about, not today, but in general, we've been talking about health equity and, getting adequate medical care and representation in medicine because, Wes and I go to doctor a lot. You know what I mean? We have to be in these wellness spaces, and we're not alone. Other people do too. So can you share your journey as a medical professional and let people know who you are, and what you had offered before and how you transitioned into what you do now?
Oh, sure. And thank you again for having me back and just sharing this space with you all in the audience this morning or whatever time of day it is that you're listening to this or viewing this. But yes, I am Dr. Melissa Hankins, and doctor as an MD. I have a medical degree as a physician. Yes, snap, April. and so, but I am a coach now for physicians.
Can I drop the name Harvard in there, or should I not?
Oh yeah, no, that's fine. That is fine. Yes,
exactly. Yes.
Okay, you gotta put that plug in. I'm sorry, but this is excellence on
Harvard trying to get rid of DEIJ. Boom.
Yes. So I did my undergrad at Harvard, and then I went to medical school at Boston University, and then I went back to Harvard for my training, my residency in psychiatry. So I'm a Harvard trained psychiatrist, and it was a great experience. And yes, absolutely. The health equities that we're seeing and we're hearing more about, it's not like they popped up all of a sudden. I mean, they've always been there. There's just been more focus on them, which is a great thing, that people are becoming more aware of them or vocalizing it more, shining a light on it more in an effort to create change. Right. And so, which is sorely needed. And so just a little bit more about my background. So I practiced clinically as a psychiatrist for 17, 18 years. And I went through my own kind of crash and burn out, just doing all the things, trying to balance all the plates that were spinning at the same time, and really just feeling trying to show up for my patients in a way that was even different than a lot of my colleagues as psychiatrists. My patients always would say, "Oh, you're so present with me. You're so different than any psychiatrist I've ever had." And while that I wouldn't change that at all, I might change how I also cared for myself during that time. And so when I went through my burnout, this was now a decade ago. It was before burnout was a thing, before it was labeled. And so it was more like, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you being able to keep up? You know, there's some personal failing of you as a physician, as a woman, as a, fill in the blank, that you're not being able to do the things that we expect of you. And I think, we run into that in a lot of spaces, certainly as women, as people of color. We're always working so much harder than, not, I won't say, let me back up, not harder necessarily than our non-BIPOC peers, but we certainly have this mindset that we must, and to be recognized, to move ahead, and so there are a lot of obstacles, and we're not seen, and we're not given a voice in a lot of spaces, and so sometimes we have to be a louder voice.
Yeah, and I would submit that the idea, like, people who work hard, right? Mm-hmm. And for us, that hard work is looked at, well, that's the least, like, oh, okay, now we'll give you recognition. Now we'll look at you. And you're still considered less than someone who is white, heterosexual, mainstream male. And I think that's very important. And I appreciate you sharing your background. Like, one, all the accolades, what you did as a journey that's hard for most individuals. But I want people to see, first of all, Wes and I bring quality people to the programming. And, like, she is a psychiatrist. She's medically trained. She's trained at one of the top institutions in the world, honestly. And so when we go into the practice and sharing more about tapping later on, I want us all to see that there's a holistic approach to wellness.
Yes.
I also want people to see that how you've transitioned as a doctor and the burnout in the medical field, and how that translates to someone like me and Wes, who will go to a doctor. Wes?
Yes.
No, absolutely. You think about just the holistic approach, it does give you, I don't know, it feels more welcoming. So as you mentioned, like, your clients are feeling like they belong in a space because of the way that you're treating them, and the comfort that they feel. I think everyone should have that approach, first of all. But I think it makes, how when you don't feel like you belong, you don't share, like you're uncomfortable, right? So just thinking of a sense of the level of comfort that you provide people to actually be very transparent about their full wellness journey or like what they're going through, mental, physical, and emotional, because you have created the level of comfort. And I don't think a lot of people understand that. You know, I definitely, as a person with a disability, have, you know, take accountability, but many times I've went into doctor's offices or something, and if I didn't feel comfortable, they didn't really know what was going on. I'm like, I'm good, and I know I'm not good, but
Right.
you've already rushed me, made me feel like this 5 minutes I got is, you know, is I'm gonna be able to lay out all my problems. So in a sense, like the discomfort made me not share, but then it allowed me to go through more things because I wasn't able to get the help provided at that moment, which then trickles down to, it could have been a physical thing, but now it becomes a mental thing or emotional thing, and has that ripple effect. So yeah, I definitely commend you, but I and then I kind of piggyback, but outside of that, I do like the fact of you sharing the overwork or like the extra work, right? Like we are always working. Like we're working for success, we're working for opportunity, we're working to get bills paid, but we're also working for generational things. Like we're working to create something that has yet to truly have a solid foundation for us not to work. Like
Yes. Oh my gosh, you brought so many great points to the surface, Wesley. Thank you so much. Um, yes, I want to make sure we kind of touch on creating this safe space truly in healthcare. When you go, or when you go and see a wellness practitioner, when you go and you're seeking services for a physical ailment, for mental health issue, for anything where you are being and needing to be vulnerable in order to get the help and support that you need, it is so important to feel safe to do so. And if there's not that level of safety, you are absolutely right. The physician, the wellness practitioner, whoever is providing the service is not going to hear the full picture. They are going to be missing key elements because the person coming in, if you're coming in and you're seeing your doctor and you feel like, oh, okay, they don't have time for me, or I'm a burden, or they don't see me because of my skin color, or because I'm in a wheelchair, or because I am overweight, or because I'm a woman, or, you know, whatever it may be, it's more of this issue where if you don't have that safety, why would you take the risk of sharing? Because it's already an uncomfortable situation that you're coming into, right? And so one of the things that I talk about now, so after, you know, I went through my own burnout and I took time off. I needed to take time off to heal myself, my soul, my spirit, you know, my mental health, my well-being, all of the things. And during that time, I did meditation, I did yoga, I did tapping, I did therapy, I did many things to really, and I just actually allowed myself to be, you know, which rather than do.
That's key.
You know, I allowed myself to be with myself, be with my feelings, be with my thoughts, and be able to find ways to reflect on them and journey through them, not simply suppress them. And so I now I became certified actually before I stopped practicing clinically as a physician. I became certified as an executive coach. And so I sat on that for a while, but what I was finding is that, you know, there were physicians, especially female physicians like me, who were struggling. And once again, this was before burnout was a thing, or became, you know, the headline that it is now. And really, I realized that this was a group that needed support in a different way. So they needed a place where they could go and talk about things. And the other piece that was very important for me was bringing in the tapping. So the tapping, and I'll talk a little bit more about what that is, but tapping, emotional freedom techniques is the formal name for it. EFT is something that I also started doing a little bit before. I discovered it a little bit before my burnout caused me to take some time off. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is an amazing tool. Once again, this was over a decade ago. And there wasn't as much evidence. There's a lot of research now behind it. But at that time, there wasn't as much evidence and there weren't as many studies behind it to support it as an evidence-based stress reduction tool that it is. And so I was kind of doing on the DL, especially because it looks a little odd. You're tapping on parts of your, at the time. And so, and I was in this Harvard institution and I just, because after I finished residency, I was working in Harvard systems in different ways. And I didn't want to be labeled as this Black woman who's doing some weird stuff by tapping on her face and stuff. I didn't need to already put another target on my back, right? So,
right there. And that's the kind of stuff we have to think about, right? Like we're looked at under a microscope, and it's not just we're not just being viewed, we're being targeted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so it was really interesting because I was considered a superstar before I did my burnout. I was a superstar in my space. My organization had nominated me for, I was in Massachusetts at the time, to be appointed by the governor of Massachusetts to be on the board of registration of medicine. So I was a board member, appointed by the governor of Massachusetts to be on this. I was doing, my patients were getting great treatment and getting better. People were looking at me as like, okay, this is a go-to doctor that we're going to send people to. And yet, as soon as I went home or after the patients left, I was falling apart,
Can I bookmark in that?
Yeah.
Because Wesley, you and I have experienced that and have talked about that too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. When I'm hearing you, I'm like, oh, this sounds like me, in a lot of ways of just, wearing a certain hat or providing a space for others that then you kind of get pulled a lot of different ways because of who you are and what you represent. But then it's the taking care of yourself at the end that becomes overwhelming because you finish your day and maybe you're just trying to get home, you're trying to rest, but it takes a toll over you. Last year, I know I took off from work. I had to basically back out of agencies, which was difficult to do because it's hard to kind of get on them. But for me, that was the only way I could remove myself from being booked and busy, because that being booked and busy was taking me away from my purpose and what filled my cup. And so I know me and April, she shared, we've talked about this because last year I was like, nope, I ain't doing nothing. Nothing's going on. Like I'm relaxing right now because I have to find like that joy that got me into it, or at least allowed me to be who I am. And a lot of people don't see that. So absolutely, at least for me, I share a lot of sentiments to that journey.
I do too, and that is a reflection, like my health, like not paying attention to my health or not knowing what was going on with my health. It's not that I wasn't paying attention; I wasn't aware, and that made me go into this hibernation. And also, like for the general public, Melissa and I have like cross connections, but I needed support. And so she has been my therapist. We've done work together. And she's taught me a lot. And I was like, everybody needs to know about this, and everyone needs that. But it's important. And it was important to have someone who is a reflection of what I know to be right and true and okay and feel safe. And I think it's so important. And my question, Melissa, because now you help doctors. So I'm not a doctor, but I do consider myself a health professional in some way.
Yes, no, and yes, while I primarily work with physicians and physician leaders, I also work with people who are leaders in other capacities, and you're a leader within your own business, and so small business owners, people who are showing up in corporate spaces. I absolutely work with them and support them as well, because it's oftentimes the higher up you go, the more isolating it is. Right? And we're already isolated as people of color. We're already isolated for those of us who identify as female, for those who may are differently abled. There are all of these spaces in which we are already isolated, right? And then just to say that while my focus is absolutely on physicians and physician leaders, I do work with other people. So yes, you didn't just slip in, April.
Good. I was thinking about this conversation last night, and one thing that came to mind for me is this idea of we're all human beings, right? And
yes,
we are isolated, but I don't know if isolated is so much. I don't know if we're oppressed and we're intentionally ostracized, and because our experience is a human experience, right? I mean, humans get sick. Human bodies are all different. There are things that happen to the human body that, who's to say because somebody's born with 4 digits instead of 5 that they're abnormal? You know what I mean? Like, there's so many experiences that make us all human, and then to say that, well, because you look this way and you act this way and you are this way, you're less human. That's
yes. Oh my gosh, that is such a key point, and something that I work with my clients around, but also I speak on, and I train other coaches around as well. This idea of empathy and seeing others as the same, because at our core, we are all human beings having a shared experience. And even all 4 of us on this screen are having a shared experience. We are all bringing our unique viewpoints and experiences to this space, and we have that common denominator of having the shared human experience. And so we are all human beings, and when we can see that about other people and step out of from behind our own lens, that's when we can start to build connection and create those safe spaces for vulnerability to show up.
I definitely agree with that. Empathy. I mean, I think that a lot of individuals don't empathize or don't start off with empathy because they're based off of judgment. So maybe it's color for the first thing. I could say race, but a lot of it's color. Like, if we don't relate to color, then I can't empathize to your struggles and vice versa. But in reality, if you have a conversation, you're like, oh man, we all going through the same thing. None of this matters, right? And I was talking recently. I made a post on my LinkedIn, and it was we've been dealing with snow and things over here in Kansas City, and of course, like all around. And it kind of went off of like, I made a post speaking on like how our city hall, there wasn't any street cleanup, and it had been days since it snowed. It wasn't no sidewalk cleanup or anything. But for me, it was the fact that as a person with disability, no matter my disability, I'm still treated as a human being first.
Right.
And so being with that, there's no phone call I received to say, hey, our sidewalks aren't clean. You don't come up to your appointment, right? Don't come up to your, don't come in here and pay these taxes, right? Like whatever the human experience is, I am still held accountable to do my day to day at the same time as everyone else, no matter my limitations, even though there are limitations and barriers based within society that create me to be late or not even be able to go due to access. And if people empathize that they're like, yes, we can run into a building, but there are so many people that can't, right? But this same building is open at the same time for everyone. So if there are people that are able that can get into a space, but haven't considered people that aren't, or those that are in position to clean up or serve, but don't because they are worried about their own like needs and wants and not being empathized to those that need it. I'm sharing this because over kind of based on the thing, I'm like, well, people empathize that you're not looking for a person with a physical limitation. You're just helping any and everyone that might have a struggle going up and down the street.
Right.
You will come up with a solution. But everyone is always like, oh, well, you know, in my mind, I'm like, of course, someone in a wheelchair is not going to come out in a negative degrees. I would hope, right? But at the same time, that's not the perspective people should carry. Like, oh, I'm not going to do this because everyone's not going to come out. Again, you should have systems in place that is empathize and create a safe space and environment for any and everyone, especially if normal business hours are operating. And I mentioned that to even businesses. Like businesses are quick to open up when the weather is bad because we need to make money, but you don't create access for other people that might need your services. So for me, I could be going by the bank, right? Like in the bank is not together. Or even that same day I made the post, and I'm sharing abroad, but same day I made the post, I drove past a hospital, and like certain sidewalks and walk paths around the hospital wasn't even, you know, shoveled or anything. And so it kind of went into the same conversation. It's like we forget to serve people because we judge them first.
Yeah.
So we're judging on what they can and cannot do, whether it's race, religion, or limitation, or even age. There's so many perspectives people go for first instead of just empathizing that if you are able to create a safe space or an environment for someone, that you should just do it out of the kindness of your heart and through empathy because you will want the same thing done for you. And I think that a lot of people miss the empathy part because there's so much selfishness going on right now. When you think of growth, you see everyone's kind of focused on themselves, but then they forget about kind of doing that extend of a reach. And again, it doesn't, like, your network is your network. We hear it all the time, but if I'm not able to come into a different network because I am judged because of what you think my worth is, then I will never be able to grow, right? Like I cannot elevate. So I just looked at all these different barriers and I thought to myself, like, man, like even if I try, for me with a physical disability, even if I try to progress within life, the lack of empathy creates barriers around me that is out of my control.
Yes. 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 It's so true. And this, thank you for sharing all of that, Leslie. I feel that with empathy, it's something that can be learned. I mean, there are some people who are naturally empathetic, and it is a skill that can be learned, certainly, at least to, you know, a certain degree. And that I think, you know, to your point of the world kind of being, whether, you know, people are being selfish or what have you, I look at it as we are living in a traumatized world. And I mean, this is a whole other topic. I talk about trauma. Trauma is a big part of my speaking platform. but when we are experiencing or have experienced trauma, and trauma can be different, it doesn't necessarily have to be like the life-threatening kind of trauma that people automatically think of.
Right.
It can be something on a smaller scale. It can be microaggressions that become macroaggression. I think microaggressions are always macroaggression, but that's just that's another. I'll put that aside for a moment. But my point being is that when people are traumatized, oftentimes people don't even recognize that they've experienced trauma, but yet their bodies recognize it and their minds recognize it, and they are acting accordingly in an unconscious way to their orbit is much smaller, right? So their focus is much smaller. Focus is here. Focus is on, I just got to get through to survive. May not be a conscious thought,
Right.
but it's what the behaviors are showing. It's what the body is doing. And when there is that, it's difficult for a lot of people to have empathy for others because they're so focused on, not necessarily even in a hurtful way, but just an unconscious way.
Yeah.
And so it's really about becoming more conscious and self-aware. And when we become more self-aware, then we can become more aware of others as well.
Well, listen, Dr. Melissa, I know I'm just going to say Melissa, but a lot of people are chiming in on LinkedIn and saying, yes, we agree. Well said. Thanks for saying that. And that just sent chills through my body. Thanks for saying that, because it's truth. You're speaking truth to life, and people don't say it enough. And this leads into why we wanted, we want you to come on however many times you need to, but that, easing into a new year, we talked about how we've all experienced burnout and how we took time away and centered ourselves. And gradually, I see all of us kind of easing into our zone of genius and trying to do us. But we still experience trauma. And like you said, the body and the mind experience the trauma. They feel the trauma. How have you found that EFT supports people through that? And how is it accessible to everybody? I saw Wes unmute, though. I don't know if he wants to chime in before.
I do it real quick. That was so good, Dr. Melissa. Okay, I just want to say that was so good, and the last piece was so important for people to understand. If you're not taking care of yourself, if you're not like caring for yourself, if you're not loving on yourself, it is very hard to consider anyone else's struggles, trauma, whatever. Like it's hard, and it isn't something that you're doing intentionally. And so I know that because I was never a healthy person until I became healthy from the inside out. Like I know that, and so I just wanted to just create go back and create some space around that as people are watching, and you are in professions where you are serving and caring for others, and as a leader and making sure that your cup is full so that you can serve with your overflow. Like it's these things that is very important. But I just wanted to create space around that, like truly love on yourself, so you can understand your journey, and it helps you empathize others, even if it's not similar. And then again, now we can go into April's question, but that one that spoke to me, because I don't think a unhealthy like soul or person can truly understand how to create a healthy environment. So you take care of yourself first, so that the environment around you has that ripple effect. It's like flowers, rose in the concrete, and it's like you take care of yourself, and then you come up, and no matter the environment, you get to sprout and make it the way that you want to look, the way that you want it to look. So
beautiful. And that's what we want to do. Wes and I have been very intentional friends about, and not just Wes and I, but the team behind us who support us and hold us up and help us move forward. We want to be very intentional about not only just talking about it, but being an example, and not being an example like, look at me, I'm doing it the right way. No, bringing tools and methodologies and ways of being that we have been learning about and practicing to show, like, here's a practical way to take care of yourself. And that is, that's been my experience with EFT. And the first time, Melissa, I was looking at this, it was 2019 when I sat in a workshop with you and first experienced it. And I'm born in Berkeley, total hippie, Bahama mama child in the 70s. Like, I'm all granola, California. West knows, like, my family's like, peace. But I had never experienced that. And it really helped. And I can use some practice in it. So Wes and I are going to do it with you. But yeah, can you share a little, like, we'll take 5 minutes or so, share what it is and how it can support the body with self-care and trauma, and then walk us through a little bit of it.
Absolutely. So EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques. And it's also goes by the name tapping, is what people often think of it, because you're actually tapping on parts of your body. You're tapping on acupressure points. And so similar to acupuncture, but without the needles. and EFT really is an evidence-based stress reduction tool that you can use for self-help, meaning you can use it on your own, or you can work with a practitioner. I'm an EFT practitioner in addition to being, a coach and a psychiatrist. And I weave in the EFT into my coaching, but I also do it as a standalone practice with people, and certainly for myself. So EFT, as you are tapping on acupressure points, you are, and we typically use 9 points on the head and upper body and the side of the hand with EFT. As you're tapping on these specific points, you are focused on a thought or an emotion or a sensation in your body that is unpleasant or quote unquote negative. I say, quotes around negative because it's all relative how we, but something that feels uncomfortable to us in the way that we're thinking. It's causing us some level of distress or angst or something along those lines. And so we're tuned into that as we are tapping. And while we are tapping, we're sending a signal, a calming signal to the part of our brain, our amygdala, that is really responsible for our stress response and for releasing kind of stress hormones and creating that kind of cascade. And so we're basically saying, hey, we're thinking of this thing that's causing us some level of distress, or we're feeling this, having this thought, having this emotion, having this sensation that's causing distress. And we're sending a signal to the amygdala saying, hey, it's okay. You're safe in this moment. You can stand down. You don't need to activate the stress response.
Mm-hmm.
We're just experiencing this, we're noticing this, but we're safe. And as we're doing that, and this happens naturally through the tapping. It's not like you have to say this in your head or say it out loud. That we are finding most often people will experience a reduction in that level of distress that they're having. And
that. I know from my experience, you're like, what's bothering you? And I'm like, A, B, C, D, E. And you're like, on a level of 1 to 10, how bad? I'm like, it's a 10. And often by the time we go through the process, I'm like, oh, well, now it's a 2. So we try to quantify it.
Exactly.
And then as you begin to take us through the practice right now, how is it accessible? So like Wes and I have use of our hands and our arms, right, and feeling some, in those areas that you're talking about. But you have shared with me, like, you don't necessarily have to hit the body, and how is this accessible for most everyone?
Right. So for people who have either a limited range of motion or aren't able to use their hands for whatever reason, maybe they don't have them, that you can, if you do have the ability, if you have hands or a hand and limited range of motion, you don't have to touch all of the points. So you can just find one. If all you could do is do the one on the side of the hand, and you could just stick with that one. If you have someone around you, a family member, a friend, they can tap on you. You can have them tap on you. And as you practice this more and more, or really focused, for me, I can actually think about the points, because thoughts are things. Everything is energy. And so when we focus on things, and you may have experienced this with like pain that you have, if you actually are focusing more on the pain, you actually experience the pain more strongly sometimes, right? Yes. And so if you're focusing on the tapping points and almost visualizing yourself tapping on it, you can also experience some benefit. So even if you aren't able to physically tap, and I know that might sound a little like woo for some people, but I'm a big believer in thoughts are things, thoughts. And so when we visualize things, our brain actually does not know the difference between something we strongly visualize and can attach emotion to versus a quote unquote real experience. So,
and this is from the good doctor. Okay. Wes, are you ready? Is there a prompt that you wanted to share with all of us in general, Melissa, or you want me and Wes to bare our soul? What would work for you?
So I'm not going to have you bare your souls unless you want to, but I thought what I would do. So EFT is a collection of techniques that people can use, and most people have know something called, if they've done tapping or seen tapping, they've seen like the basic recipe, where that's our kind of bread and butter 80% of the time. This one that we're going to use is something called orienting tapping. Same tapping points, same principle, but for purposes of demonstration, it's something that can be useful without opening anything big up. Because that's one thing with tapping, if you are dealing with any kind of moderate to severe trauma, or even think like, this is really kind of a big issue for me, I want someone to help me guide, I'm not sure I can do this on my own, work with a well-trained trauma-informed practitioner, EFT practitioner. Don't ever jump into trauma on your own. I will just say that.
That's
okay.
Right there. Don't ever jump in.
Yeah, you need someone who can help contain that and not just open it up and spew. So this, what I want people to do, both you and Wesley and anyone who is watching, I want you to take a deep breath and just notice how expansive your lungs feel when you take a deep breath. Okay, and on a scale from 0 to 10, 10 being the most expansive, just the first number that comes into your mind for how full you feel like it can feel, and how full or expansive your lungs feel. So do you have your number? Okay. And so for me, for example, as I did that, mine is an 8. You can share your number if you'd like to, that's fine. But April?
6.
Okay, 6.
Mine was an 8.
8. Okay. All right. So April's like, okay, this is not a competition. We are not. Let me just say
Thank you for
that.
that reminder.
This is not a competition. Okay. You're where you're at. Okay. There's not one number better than another. Okay. So now we're going to tap on the acupressure points. And for this, normally when I'm working with people, I will ask them questions about a specific issue they have, ask them to say what emotion they have attached to that, and if they feel it somewhere in their body. And then using their words, I will tap through the tapping points. After we rate the emotion, how intense it is, and we do tapping, and then we come back and we rate it again and see if things have changed. For this purposes, for today, I'm going to say some words. You do not have to say them out loud, but just follow me along, tapping on yourself as I'm tapping. Okay. So on the side of the hand, there's, and I guess I will show you the points really fast. There's the side of the hand. You can use your left or your right hand. Once again, if you have someone who can be with you and tap on you, if that's an issue, then ask for that person to do that. But on the side of the hand, we're going to take maybe 3 fingers and tap on the side of your hand. Once again, you can switch hands, it doesn't matter. And then we're going to tap on the top of the head. The very top of your head is the next point. The eyebrow point is where your eyebrow starts. It could be left, right, or both. The side of the eye is that bone on the side of your eye, near your eye, not back by your hairline, but by your eye. And then under the eye is that bone right under your eye. You could do left, right, or both. Your under the lip here is the next point. Your chin point. And actually it's under the lip, under the nose. I'm sorry. I'm like, wait, that's not the lip. The lip it's above the lip, but it's under the nose. And then your chin point is that crease of your chin, not the bottom of your chin, but that crease. Collarbone, if you feel the bony prominences of your collarbone and go over an inch and down an inch, but you could just do this and you can capture both, that's fine, or you could do this. And under your arm is on the side of your body, about 4 inches below your armpit, or if you're a woman wearing a bra, then it's in your bra line. You could also do this if it's easier, so you don't have to do both. So whatever your number was, have it to the side. And now we're going to just start tapping on the side of your hand. So even though I'm able to take a deep breath to the number of, say it in your head, I deeply and completely accept myself. Even though I can only fill my lungs to whatever the number is, I deeply and completely accept myself. Even though I can only take in as much air to whatever your number is, I deeply and completely accept myself. Now we're going to start to the top of the head. You could do one hand or both. I tend to do both. I can notice my breathing in and out. I can breathe to whatever your number is. Just kind of take a look around you. I'm noticing whatever it is you're noticing in front of you. For me, I'm noticing the window, and it's kind of gray outside. Under the eye. And I notice where I'm sitting or standing or laying down. I'm noticing my body connecting with the surface under me. Under the nose. And I hear myself a little bit of feedback on the laptop, but notice what you are hearing behind you, around you, in your environment. Take a deep breath in, and I feel my lungs expand with air. Collarbone. And I'm noticing that I'm going to take a breath again, and I'm going to try and pull it further, deeper into my belly this time. And under the arm. And I'm noticing that maybe I'm feeling a little more relaxed and expansive, and my lungs feel a little fuller when I can take in a breath. And that feels good right now. Okay. And now I want you to take a deep breath again. And out. And did your number change at all? April, what did you notice?
I noticed, I'm going to say 9, no competition, but this week though, I have felt very restricted in my breathing. And I was breathing all up here when we first did it. And I felt like my whole torso expand this time. And my shoulders went down.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And Wes, did you notice any change?
Nope, I keep it at 8 right now. I definitely feel like that's like my channel number. No pun intended, but I did some breath work while I was in LA for a couple months. So like it really already helped me. So I do feel like I'm full and balanced when it comes to like making sure that I can breathe properly and all that good stuff. So no pun intended, April, but
no. Did you notice any other changes, maybe even in your thoughts or anything that came to mind for you?
Just more clarity in a day. Like just going through the practice itself just helps me kind of become more aware of like the things around me visually and and just kind of even the energy that's surrounding. So I think that's kind of a lot of things that I felt. And then internally, just release, some relief that like some pressure was released somehow just through the breath work and the process of becoming more aware.
Yes, great. So for me, I actually went from an 8 to a 10. It was I felt very expansive afterwards, and I felt more relaxed. And so I really love, Wesley, that you shared how you became more aware and the clarity, because so for this demonstration, I used the kind of example of breathing in, because oftentimes when we're stressed, we're breathing in a much more shallow way. We're not having expansive breathing in, and breath is life, and so the more that we can breathe in and really oxygenate parts of our body, the better off we're going to be. And when we can breathe in a deeper way and have a bigger and longer exhale, that actually activates our parasympathetic nervous system. I'm not going to get all sciencey here, but basically that's the part of our nervous system that helps us to feel more at rest and less stressed and activated. And so when we have less stress, we are actually able to have greater clarity with our thoughts, with what's around us. We're more present. And when we're more present, we're less stressed, because stress is really us projecting into the future and having all this worry and anxiety. Or we're thinking about things in the past and we're having regrets and sadness and what have you. But if we're actually able to be in this present moment, we're often recognizing that, you know what, if I can bring myself into my body and be more aware and have greater clarity, I can actually make decisions and take actions and show up in ways that are going to benefit me more.
I think that's wonderful. And that's the part I like, where you're tapping the acupressure points.
Mhm.
To me, that brings the presence. It combines the acupressure with the breathing. And I wasn't necessarily thinking like, I'm on the screen with everybody and, you know, sharing. It's like, oh, I'm just in my moment. Thank you so much for that.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely. I really appreciate it. I think it was a great practice. I love the explanation of stress too. Just for those that don't understand it, at least that kind of helped me a little bit. Like, oh, why do I stress at times? But if you're forward thinking or thinking in the past, it will kind of put some weight on you. So I really love the explanation of that.
This is wonderful. Yeah. We encourage you all to practice EFT, and Melissa has a website, right?
I do have a website. It is Melissa Hankins.
Oh, go ahead.
Yes, it's melissahankinscoaching.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn and Instagram at Melissa Hankins MD. MD is in medical doctor. Yes, you know, for people who are interested in learning more about EFT and maybe even finding someone to work with, there are a few resources. One that a lot of people tend to use is the Tapping Solution app, which is an app you can have on your phone. They have tapping meditations basically on many different topics. Now, my only caveat with that is it is very generic in terms of it's not specific to your unique situation. And tapping always works best when it can be focused on your specific emotion, your thoughts associated with that emotion, and where you're feeling it in your body. And so it can be helpful as a way of getting some relief from some of your stress. But if you have something more specific to work on, work with a practitioner. And there are some places that you can look up to find practitioners who are trained in EFT. Two that I recommend is EFT International. So EFTinternational.org. You can go on there and look for people who are trained, well trained in EFT, and the Association of Comprehensive Energy Psychology. The website for that is Energy Psych, PSYCH.org. So those are good places to go and find practitioners who can help you with EFT, and also if you have some big issues to work through, some trauma or something, you know, make sure to always ask, are you someone who can help me with this? And that's whenever you're looking to get services from, whether it's for EFT, whether it's medical care, mental health care, always ask questions. This is about you, for you, and you are important enough to advocate for yourself.
There you go.
So always ask the questions. And if you feel like, okay, this person isn't hearing me, they're not seeing me, you know, look for someone else who does hear you, who does see you.
I'm going to take all those links and put them in the newsletter that'll come out this week, because that's a wealth of resources. Thank you so much for that. And before we head out, real quick, like, let's do a share of what we've been doing this past month to care for our own selves. And
you are sorry. No. You are important enough to advocate for yourself. Oh my God. Okay. Oh my God. Oh, that. I'm always gonna have to go back to a little bit. That was gold right there. Okay, Dr. Melissa.
I'm gonna type that down.
You are important enough to advocate for yourself. That is powerful. That is powerful for so many that don't believe they have a voice. Oh,
Yeah.
I love that. Yo, that was good. Okay.
So much knowledge today, huh?
Woo, my cup was full. Okay, so what are we doing to set the tone for the new year?
Oh, listen, I have been reading The Covenant of Water. I don't know if you can see it. This book, so thick, so rich. And I'm really going to read, I don't know about reading more, but I read an article about reading fiction can really help with brain health. So I'm going to like really work on my health. And so setting the tone for the new year is being intentional. My word for the new year is healing. So thank you for asking, Wes. I wanted to drop that in. Okay, I'm reading. Who's next?
Go ahead, Wes.
Oh, really? Okay. All right. So, setting the tone for me. This is the year of truly like self-investment. So I think starting a new year, I'm just kind of getting back on my health kick, trying to find things that outside of work, things that will fulfill me. So getting involved in more activities that I used to do. So competition is kind of in my forward thinking. As well as trying to find events that are aligned with my purpose so that I can be able to expand my network a lot more. So that's kind of been what I've been intentional about. And again, it's coming. So
Yes,
set the tone. I created a gratitude journal called Set the Tone. And so it will be launched real soon. And the goal with this was to be able to have something that I can lead people in to understand like what the importance of gratitude for oneself so that you can create the life that you want. And so my intention of this new year is again self-investment, but also putting out products and things that I truly believe in and love myself. So Set the Tone is coming out really soon. I'm really excited about it. Yeah. Oh, and lastly, because I travel so much that I'm going to become more aware to highlighting my travel. So I'm gonna start like a travel vlog. Under the purposes, I travel alone with the disability, and I think that there's importance to understanding like all of the things that I have to go through and do to be able to prepare myself for what those journeys look like. So again, self-investment 2024, me really putting and filling my cup up. So that's what it is. I'm filling my cup up.
Oh, I love all of that. Oh my gosh.
Wes, you're such an influence. I posted about my healing journey, my illness last night, thinking of you. I decided to be vulnerable. So thanks for being you.
Wow, I love that. And, for me, one of the things that I'm also, expanding and doing more, I've been speaking more about trauma and creating trauma-informed workspaces. So really trauma-informed psychological safety in workspaces, whether that's in healthcare, whether that's in corporate settings, whether that's even within the coaching space in a dyad, so a one-to-one kind of space. So, continuing to educate people around that is very important to me. And having, along with that, increasing compassion for myself and for others. And compassion is a big word for me this year, just in terms of self-compassion, because I think, we can get so caught up in the doing. Oh, I want to do this. And if, especially I'm a perfectionist in recovery. So, having all of those things, if I'm not doing it right or not doing enough, not feeling that I'm a failure. And so I've done a lot of work on that, moving through that, but sometimes that still comes up. So having that self-compassion for myself, that I'm doing the best I can in the moment and helping others to feel that too. One of the things that I am reading, or getting ready to read, I just ordered it and I'm excited to get started with it, is a book. It's not a new book, it's an older book, but by Robert Holden, called Shift happens, how to live an inspired life starting right now.
Mhm.
And so I'm looking forward to, getting started with that. And, and I continue to incorporate my EFT on a daily practice, something I do when I get up in the morning, and I just silently tap actually with whatever thoughts I've got to get that clarity, as Wes was talking about earlier, that he experienced, to start my day in a positive mindset. So
all of this. Thank you, Melissa, for sharing what you're doing for yourself. I really appreciate that. And that to me is like so important. Like we tapped into you for your resources and your knowledge, and you gave of yourself. And I think it's so important that we hear what you do and how you give to your own self. So for all of you watching, sometimes you see Wes and I looking down or whatever. We're taking notes on our phone. We're typing on our computer. So I typed up the quotes and our words. And what a way to ease into 2024. And thanks for that question, Wes, of what we are doing and we're thinking of as we go into 2024. And I actually hope to circle back at the end of this year to see if we've matched all this or where we've gotten. Because no matter where we go on the journey, this is our intention. We'll get to some space. So happy New Year. It's just been lovely and wonderful. Wes, do you have any closing remarks?
Nope. Besides the fact that I downloaded Shift Happens. And so, because it sounded like such an amazing book that I got to start. I'm probably going to start it today. And again, really appreciate that. But thank you for allowing me to find ways to fill my cup up today and get excited for the Chiefs game. All right, I'm good.
We have to increase our stress and joy, and you know what? But I was reading the daily podcast had a whole thing on the NFL, but community is important, right? So like celebrating and being together, and that creates humanity in this wonderful circle. So
absolutely.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. Thank you so much. It's just been so beautiful. I'm so grateful to have had this opportunity to share this space with you. Thank you.
Quick question. What's the temperature where you are, Melissa? She's in Colorado.
It's not bad, actually. I think it's like 40.
Oh, you're hot.
Or something.
She's hot today. We just got out of Wes?
Yeah.
We are 21.
Oh, so we're warm because it was 17 this morning.
Yeah. It was negative whatever the last week. So right now it feel like 90 degrees.
Right. Stay warm, you all. Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining us. We'll see you everybody. Thank you for joining us and listening to the podcast. If you would like more information on the guests and the stories that you've heard today, and to hear stories from others, subscribe to the podcast. We also invite you to subscribe to Open Up Pittsburgh's newsletter, as well as our YouTube channel. We want you all to take care, and remember to make your own stories. This is April. Peace.